Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, tonight is Tuesday, November 28th, and as we had talked about last week, we were going to try to have a special guest instructor join us last week. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it. However, she was able to stop by tonight, and we're going to be meeting with her. She's not only a firearms instructor as well as a 2A advocate. She helped found the organization of We the Female, which we'll be talking about a lot tonight because they've got an upcoming raffle and benefit coming up, and we're going to be talking about that. I've got links to her website as well as the raffle down in the comment section on both YouTube and the Rumble channel, so please, let's go ahead and welcome her in. We'll go ahead and bring her on in. There we go. And the funny thing is, for those of y'all who don't know, nothing but the highest production quality here. The stream actually started this time of amazing things of all. Yeah, I looked before. Our monitor system isn't working on here, so I'm trying to monitor the chats and everything on an iPad down here. And I'm like, it's on about a 10-second delay. And I'm like, okay, it's not. It's going now. We're actually live. So go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of We the Female. It's a nonprofit organization that's mission is to, in short, arm the women with education, confidence, and self-defense. I founded it 5 years ago. Excuse me. I have a sinus infection, y'all, so please forgive me. And I'm kind of a mess over here. So I feel like I look and sound like a feral animal. It's because
don't worry, they're used to putting up with me around here, so I get in just fine.
Thanks. So 5 years ago in Washington State, there was a law that was passed. A lot of people, gun owners and such, are familiar with it because it was a very big deal, made national news. It was called I-1639. And there was a lot of things that were in it that everybody talked about. But one of the things that people didn't know that was in it was this little caveat that said when you signed a 4473, it was an automatic waiver of your medical record, and the Washington State Health Authority, whoever they are, because conveniently they never define that, as always is the case with the government, can deny you the purchase of a firearm based on what they found in your medical record. Now, you and I and your listeners know they weren't looking for a broken arm. You know, they were looking for some mental health issue, obviously. Well, many years prior to that, my ex-husband he almost killed me in a domestic violence situation. And I did what I was supposed to do and went to therapy. And of course, ended up with those 4 magic letters, PTSD, on my medical record. So I was in a position where I could have been denied the purchase of a firearm because I had that on my record. They never defined how far back they would look. The way that they left it open-ended allowed them to look every year if they wanted to look to monitor you. And of course, it was a classic setup for red flag laws, which they conveniently passed the next year. So this is what a lot of people don't understand about law that I became very adept at learning through the last years is more often than not, it's not what the law says, it's what it doesn't say that usually bites us in the butt. And so when things are really, really vague, it means that essentially, or they say they're going to create a committee and give money to it. That means that they're writing a blank check for them to essentially do whatever they want. And that was what happened in this case. So I was married to, there's different types of abusers, but mine was like the true dangerous one. He was a sociopathic narcissist. And he had taken a second job, blamed me, of course, for having to take the second job because that's what they do. But the job was a pizza delivery person. And his delivery territory was where I owned a condo because we'd already separated at the time. And he had come to my home and had beat me up on Thanksgiving 17 years ago. So he figured out a way to work around the system to be able to stalk me. And that law put me in a position where if things had escalated, I wouldn't have been able to buy a firearm to protect myself.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Just to let you know, we have already one person in this chat saying that Farrell's good around here. So,
good.
Like I said, you fit right in.
I just found a sweatshirt I've got to buy that says unladylike. Like that's going on my Christmas list. If nobody buys it, I'm buying it for myself.
There you
go.
Kind
of a shit starter in the gun industry, I'm just saying.
But I think, you and I have talked back and forth, and, you know, I know that when we did the Girls and Guns stream, I read the article that you wrote for Town Hall Media on here because I follow them between Cam and Bearing Arms and also Megan. I mean, the thing is, you've lived it firsthand. I've lived it from a standpoint of being an EMS responder.
Mm-hmm.
You get that address again, you get that situation again, and it's like, how bad is it going to be this time? Because it tends to escalate. I can't say 100%, but it's like, oh gee, we're going out there again. And as much as our paramedics are trained to deal with a lot of abuse situations, we deal with it to the best of our ability. But unfortunately, I know, reading that article, you said, why are we not getting the message out about the best way to protect yourself? You know what? It might not be a piece of paper. Just saying. What would I know?
Well, it isn't. And in fact, the other organization that I work for, Crime Prevention Research Center, some of you may or may not know who that is. That's John Lott. If you're a gun owner and you don't know who he is, you probably should. John is the preeminent researcher. Yeah, that's him.
What do I do about it? Never heard of him.
He is the preeminent researcher that stumbled into being a 2A researcher or gun researcher. Mm-hmm. That's not how he intentionally started his career. But anyway, so that being said, that's where he's at now. And when the link is actually in my Wall Street Journal article as well. But there's research on their website in the amicus brief. So if you go to the main page, the amicus brief that was submitted for the Rahimi versus the U.S. versus Rahimi. I apologize, y'all. I've got cold medicine fog in my head. We've got the data in there that proves that restraining orders do not prevent. It doesn't lower the number of murders of a victim. Mm-hmm. With a gun or without, interestingly enough. So it's there. In other words, restraining order doesn't prevent an abuse victim from being murdered. Right. So my big thing is, why aren't we first and foremost teaching women to embrace self-defense with the most effective self-defense tool available to them? And I'll tell you, I have an answer for that. I can tell you why we don't in a minute. But also, and more importantly, why aren't we holding these abusers and criminals to the standard of the law that they've already violated, right? Or if they've already been convicted. So these guys are continually let out of jail. They're given plea bargains. My ex was charged with felony abuse charge and a DUI. They dropped the DUI charge and gave him a diversion agreement from a felony charge. And they said it was because he didn't actually use a physical weapon on me when he beat me up.
But I guess my thing, and I'll take my misogynist card for this one. At the point when two human beings are in a room and one is 100 pounds heavier and 6 inches to 12 inches taller, no, there's no weapon.
Right.
There's no weapon involved.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So he was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than me. He would, he picked me up by my throat, threw me across the room. As I sat with the female prosecutor, I was literally both black eyes. My mouth was cut open inside. My teeth were fractured. I'd eaten because my mouth was so cut up inside and swollen I couldn't eat. I was literally bruised head to toe with fingerprints around my neck where you could see like the marcations of where his fingers were, and she still did that. Now, interestingly enough, there's a side note, the law enforcement officers. So for those of you that don't know, there's a difference between holding charges and formal charges. And a lot of people don't realize that. So cops will bring somebody in and they'll charge them with XYZ. And then the prosecutor essentially looks at it for all kinds of different reasons and decides what they're going to move forward with. And in this case, she didn't have time, energy, or desire. But really, it's because she thought that I wasn't going to testify, even though I looked her straight in the face and said, yes, I'll testify against him. But the cops, the reason they arrested him was because when they showed up, I was bloody. My mouth was bleeding and my nose was bleeding and everything. And I was going to school. Mm-hmm. Because he beat me up for 3 hours.
And the thing is, you mentioned that. You all right?
Yep, I'm good.
I appreciate
Sorry,
you.
my throat just got dry.
I appreciate you soldiering on through tonight. But again, from the EMS side, we go out there, we see it. We make notifications. The ER makes notifications if the patient's transported. Law enforcement does their thing, and a lot of times I see these street level law enforcement. They are catching the fish as fast as they can. They're out there, they're doing their best to do it, but if it doesn't get followed through by a prosecutor with 47 other files on their desk, that's where, and there are some good prosecutors. I've got some friends who work for the solicitor's offices here locally that are fantastic, but I've also seen some that it's like, you wonder how is he out again? And they're either out on bond or out pending a trial or out pending whatever. And as much as the victim or the survivor tries to work within the system doesn't always work for them.
No.
Whether it's a restraining order, protective order, right, whatever they get, that's great to a point. But
right, and that's actually the issue, is the two biggest pawns for gun control are children and domestic violence victims. And we see that, sorry y'all, we see that evidence constantly or at a federal level with because there's a federal law that says if you're convicted of domestic violence, you're permanently banned from owning firearms. That's what this whole Rahimi case is about.
Right.
That's coming in and so on and so forth, especially because he was never actually, in that case, side note, he was never convicted of domestic violence.
Okay. I've been following Rahimi a little bit, and it was interesting to see your response or your take on Rahimi, because my biggest question on the Rahimi case is, as it is with anything that is a preemptory restriction, is the due process limitation. I understand where they're trying to go and what they're trying to do. My biggest concern on Rahimi is, we've seen occasional allegations be false. And, if someone gets their rights restricted post due process, I'm great with it. If someone gets their rights restricted on a spurious accusation, I have questions. And it's the same with the red flag stuff.
So that is one of the most controversial attitudes I have, even among people that call themselves pro too. I'm a hardline absolutionist.
Okay.
I believe that felons, if they have served their time, they should have their rights automatically. If their voting rights are restored, then their gun rights should be restored. Mm-hmm. Because if they're not rehabilitated in the corrections system, they should still be in jail. And the people that argue with me most about that are also the same people that will turn around and out of the other side of their mouth say, this law has only hurt me because criminals are going to get guns regardless. So then what you really mean is this law is only going to hurt people that are truly reformed.
Right. Now, I will say I'm with you to a point.
There's no way for you not to be. You're a hypocrite if you don't. And I tell everybody that. You cannot sit there and say that all these gun control laws hurt me as a law-abiding citizen and then turn around and say that a felon is going to get a gun anyway and then say that they shouldn't have their rights back if by the system they are defined as reformed. So again, it's not a matter of whether they should be denied a gun or not. It's really a matter of the system needing to change what it looks like and reform itself and not let the people back out, or they should be, rapists, child molesters. Why are they being kept alive to begin with?
Right. I can go with this. But my question would be, I would say, have them come out and do at least a year or two out to prove that they're becoming functional members of society.
Show me that wrongfully convicted.
True. But again, from the standpoint of, feel more comfortable if, hey, they get out, they can go buy whatever that weekend. No, let them have a year to prove that they've actually done right.
Chances of them being more reformed a year, chances of them being reformed the weekend they get out is going to be higher than a year later.
True.
I can destroy any counter argument with that. I mean, it's because it's just silly to me. It's silly to me that people argue both sides of that when it's the same people that say they're going to get the gun anyway. This case, the Supreme Court case, is a perfect example.
Oh yeah, I mean,
he was his guns were taken away under a domestic violence restraining order that he had no representation for in court.
Right.
He wasn't there when it was issued. They issued the restraining order. They took his guns, and wow, turns around, and guess what? He ended up convicted for being in possession of guns while under a restraining order.
Right, and this was after what? Shooting up at McDonald's? I mean,
it was all kinds of stuff, and another domestic. There was all kinds of them. Like it was like, this is not the dude that we want representing us in court. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on them taking the Rahimi case, because they did the oral argument on a Tuesday, and so I was covering it that Tuesday night. It's like oral arguments. I was like, now, if you read this case, understand this is not the poster child we asked for. We've got the poster child we've got.
No, not at all. And he's terrible. And unfortunately, his lawyer was awful. Mm-hmm. That lawyer was painful to listen to. He was a joke. But here's the kicker that a lot of people may or may not realize. So here's the background on that. And that is that the federal judge that ruled in favor of Rahimi, saying that, yes, he should have his rights back under Bruin, hated the Bruin decision and was pissed at the Supreme Court for it. So essentially, he did this as an FU to the Supreme Court, saying, you deal with this piece of shit now. Mm-hmm. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, not by much.
Right. Right. I don't think that was, yeah.
So Biden is the one that actually demanded that this case be heard again to overturn it. Or the Biden administration is. So, right. But here's the thing. So if they rule in favor of Rahimi, the media and the gun control groups and domestic violence groups and liberals and, are going to have a field day with them talking about how they're letting abusers have guns again, right?
Right. But they're already having it, and it's disingenuous, but we deal with them.
But here's the other side of it. If they rule in favor of the state, it's going to force the Supreme Court to have to revisit the Bruin decision. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, and potentially Warren and Heller. So the case is really about what defines somebody as dangerous or responsible, and being able to justify, because the argument is that, responsible people that are dangerous should be able to own guns. Okay, well, who gets to define that? And what does that look like?
Right.
So this is the can of worms that this lower court judge intentionally set up. And so this is a case where we really don't know which way it's going to go, because we don't know if they're going to rule in favor of Rahimi and take that heat, or if they're going to have to revisit what they've done before. And the two ringers are Kavanaugh and Roberts.
Right. And the Rahimi case, like I said, it's just not. He's not the poster child you wanted, but he's the one we got, so we'll take him. But okay. So now I know you posted up. You've got the drawing coming up. I think you said it's scheduled for December 4th.
December 4th. I have elixir now. I have an herbal remedy to hopefully soothe that dryness in my throat.
Rock and rye.
Yeah, my husband just brought it in. So about a year ago, Brownells generously donated a Smith & Wesson Shield 2.0 to us to raise money for an event that ended up unfortunately having to be canceled. And so I'm finally getting around to getting this pistol raffled off. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful to so many people who stepped up and just really loved the idea of doing this and wanted to help. So Cold War Concealment, Moms Who Carry, you can find them on social media. They immediately respond and says, hey, how about we give her, the winner, a holster for the gun. So that was very generous of them. And then you stepped up next and says, how about we also add a range bag and a bleed stop kit to that, which I think is wonderful. Then I get a call from, if you guys are gun people at all, you follow any influencers or whatever, Tracy Lee, also goes by Tracy Guns, blue hair. She's a very good friend of mine. And she works with a company called AKT Sport, and they make Ear Pro. And so she messaged donating Ear Pro. And then a very dear friend of mine who goes, her name is Denise, but she goes by Armed Princess on social media. She messaged and said, do you have a safe for them? And I said, I don't. So she donated a Voltec safe, snap caps, training caps, and a cleaning kit. So now this whole package, other than eyes, I'll probably throw in a little pair of eyes that I've got around here somewhere, is now worth over $1,000 with all the generous donations from all of people like you.
If I can pull this up on here, let's see here. Because, I mean, my thing, I'm 100% on board with, doing this. To me, it makes all the sense in the world. There's your website there.
So that picture was taken. I was teaching. That was a free training event that my organization did in Chicago. We got 24 women qualified for their CCW permits in Chicago. That's what I'm doing, is I'm explaining to them in that photo that that's a magazine, not a clip. Especially in the hood, they tend to call it a clip. So
I know. Well, I mean, so many people we're seeing right now come across our desk as an instructor. Their knowledge of firearms is TV only. Whatever's been on TV.
There's a lot of instructors that don't have shit for knowledge either.
Yeah, I was trying to be diplomatic.
No, I'm just being honest. Like, let's just call it what it is. I mean, do I know everything? Absolutely not. But I'm not going to speak on stuff that I don't know about either. But there's a lot of, especially dudes to women, that, they think they know and they don't. And it's that kind of behavior. And just like, like that dude, we call it the mansplaining, because it is a thing. Not every guy does it. So don't come at me, y'all, because it won't go well for you if you do. But that does exist.
You notice I didn't say a word. I didn't.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about anybody that'll watch this. So
I made sure that the brain and mouth were both in neutral at that moment.
Well, you've seen it. You've seen the shit I deal with. So
right.
There's a lot of condescension and a lot of lecturing and talking down, or just abusive language. And yes, women do it too. Yes, they do. But by far and wide, it comes a lot more from men to women in the gun space. And unfortunately, in the gun space, if that woman is just seeking information for the first time, somebody with that kind of crazy talking all that foolishness, or being condescending or lecturing or talking down to her, you can turn her off. And if she's somewhere center to left and she's ready to teeter and switch over to the other side, you will absolutely create a gun control advocate if you talk to her that way. I know that because I work with liberal women all the time and I flip them in my classes. So it's one of those things that I encourage people. I'm all about free speech, but understand that free speech can have consequences. And in this case, in what I do, that consequence can be making a woman who's looking at owning a gun and turning her into a gun control advocate.
Right. And
careful.
The thing is, as instructors, we also need to realize now, I'll really admit, I did not touch my first firearm until I was like 21 years of age. And I mean, I did not grow up in a house with firearms. There were no guns allowed in the house. My father had been a World War II vet. He had actually disarmed a German officer of a old, Luger pistol. And he was made by my mother to get rid of it.
Oh my God.
Prior to me being brought into the house, kind of thing.
That's unfortunate.
And, this was in New York. No, not in the city, but just outside the city. I was I'm 20. I grew up 25 minutes, 30 minutes from ground zero, if that gives you an idea.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, he, had to get rid of that. No guns in the house. No, And, it was when I was living after we had moved to North Carolina that everybody was, I had a lot of friends who were involved in guns, and these were individuals from the law enforcement side. Um, I'm sure you know how the sheriff's departments work with, the election not going well this year and a bunch of guys get fired. Well, a lot of the guys were reserves or part-time, different places, keeping up their cards, working other jobs, and I ended up running in this circle and meeting a bunch of these guys.
Sure.
And they're like, what do you mean you don't carry it? Let's go to the range.
Yeah.
And that was before North Carolina had concealed carry, because we didn't get concealed carry for civilians until 95 in North Carolina, 96 in South Carolina. And it was like, okay, let's go to the range. Let's do this. Let's do that. Hey, why don't you come up and meet the sheriff with us? And, we'll work on doing something to try to see if he can get you, a permit through the sheriff's office. That was the only way you were going to do it. And it was like, okay. It was new to me. Now, 30 years later, I remember coming from that journey. I remember not knowing a clip from a magazine and, how the heck do you do this and what's, but I was very, very fortunate and blessed to have, a guy who had been in the administration and a firearms instructor at one sheriff's office who got fired subsequent to an election, a guy who had been first lieutenant in the Marine Corps, who had trained overseas with different groups, who had, come back home and been a deputy and gotten fired subsequent to an election. And hanging out with these guys, I learned everything. I was like, I won't say everything, but I learned a lot. I learned how to clean their guns really well.
I bet.
I learned that young arms work their presses real well for them. How's
Yeah,
that?
right. Yeah, how convenient that they did that. You're an intern, right? Yeah. So it's yeah, I was lucky as well. My husband was great, and I don't trade with my husband. And it's not him, it's me. I have no patience to but I do, but I've been blessed to have a lot of good guidance and things. But women who, and they first go to the internet, and there's a lot of good information, but there's also a lot of bad information out there and a lot of dangerous information. And so we have to be really careful about how we approach women. And in my case, working with domestic violence victims and single mothers, elderly ladies, that's what all this money from this raffle goes into our financial aid fund. We provide financial aid for women, single mothers, our elders, and like we did a couple, and there's a 75-year-old couple. We gave them a scholarship fund as well, so they could come together, and they brought their little walkers and stuff. It was really cute. But and the single mothers, abuse survivors, a lot of times if they're just coming out of their situation, they're having to start over. Or in the case of some of our elders, they're fixed incomes, so they can't afford training. So we provide the training. I don't get a paycheck from any of the work I do with We the Female, which is why I took the job with CPRC, so that I have a paycheck. But we do, it's actually higher than that now. I've got to have her change it. It's over $750 in prizes now. It's over $1,000. Mm-hmm. But all of the money that comes in through this raffle goes directly to the financial aid fund for women that can't afford training.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you said the tickets, said on here, the tickets were like $25 a piece.
$25 each, or a $50 donation gets you 3. Oh, look at that. We're at, what is that? 20. I don't have my glasses on. Is it
$23.60?
Nice. So,
folks,
for example, the class in Chicago cost me about $4,500. I had volunteers, so I didn't have to pay. And Emma was donated, so out of pocket it was $3,000. But if I were to have to do it again, it'd be about $4,500 to run that class to train 24 women, just to give somebody an idea of what that is. So, yeah, that's so that's one class. I mean, this is almost one class that we'll be able to hold for women that can't afford training. So.
And like you said, they're trying to start over. And okay, for those of us who have been around for a while, think about what it was when you first got into firearms. Okay, even without costs of permitting or anything else. Okay, well, there's guns, there's magazines, there's ammunition, there's ear pro, eye pro, targets. This is an expensive road for folks to go down,
Yeah.
and anything we can do to make this realistic for them, to me, you know,
Sometimes that's all it takes. And, we've also helped women, particularly in constitutional carry states, although I still really encourage them to go get training, even if they shot as a kid or whatever. I see that a
right,
lot down here in the South, is they don't think they need, not so much the women, but the men. Well, my wife knows how to use a gun, but the women, when I talk to the women, interestingly enough, they say, oh, we know how to shoot guns. Our redneck cousins taught us how to shoot. We don't know how to be gun owners. That is the difference between men and women right there. Huge. That's why so many instructors like working with women, because we stop, we listen, and whereas the dudes are like, let's go, and they want to go party it up. And I don't get me wrong, I get it, it's fun, but
right,
there's just a different learning process. And so the more that we can take the intimidation factor out for women, the better.
right. That's really funny. I've got a couple of comments coming in here. One says, I want my 50 caliber belt fed with lasers inside the bullet button. He's one of our regulars.
I want one of those on a turret strapped to the roof of my house.
Okay. Yeah. That's Sleazy 89. And then my friend Minnie, I don't know. Have you had a chance to open the little package that popped in yet?
Nope. I ended up in my office all day. I looked at it when I went downstairs to grab my charger, and I was like, shit, I didn't even get to open that today. So
okay. Well, there's all sorts of goodies in there, but one of them is a one-of-a-kind item that she actually made for us to sort of show off some of her creations.
Well, thank you, Minnie. I appreciate that.
She it'll explain more in the letter, but she's sort of the embodiment of Minnie Mouse, so to speak.
Okay.
And she well, she and her mother had not had a lot of experience with firearms, and her husband is the IT guy that my company Valor Medical uses. And we got talking one day. We all go out to dinner about once a month or so, and we got talking, and I told him that I wasn't particularly worried about him, because if the boogeyman jumped out, grabbed him, and drug him off in the woods, he'd probably bring him back for whining in about 15 minutes. But, she works, and she's out and around and doing this and going to the craft store at all hours of the night and everything else. And, I asked her about, carrying and why not. And she goes, don't know anything about it. I was like, when are we going to the range? And we talked about it. And a little while, after that, she said, okay, fine, she'll go. And, can she bring her mommy? And I'm like, sure. And again, living persona, you picture Minnie Mouse here, okay? Yeah. And, nothing but sweetness and light. That's like, okay, we've got to do something about this. Well, mommy had an old, don't remember the brand name, but it was a lever action 4570 that she had inherited.
Nice.
And she fired it a couple of times, and it was a bit much for her. We went to an outdoor range, and that was a bit much for mom. And so then, we were there, and I said, well, I've got some toys you can play with me. And I pull out of my range bag a Smith shield, couple of other things, a Shield Easy. Her mom's, 70 something or other, and has rheumatoid arthritis, and not
Shield
the best.
Great for that.
It's the Shield Easy, and
fantastic for that.
They tried it out. Mommy liked it so much she went out and got her one.
Yeah.
And so it's like periodically now, it's about once a week, once every other week, I'm texting. It's like, okay, when are we going to the range? When are we going to the range? And the funny thing is, depending on when we hit the range, a lot of them have the ladies shoot free days.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, they're shooting for free. Targets are $1. I've got eyes and ears they can use. And I'm a member of the range, so I'm in free. So literally, they're shooting for the cost of ammo.
Right.
And as bad as ammo can be, it's now, bulk. We'll just say that.
Right.
I
Yeah,
have
and that's a big deal, and it definitely helps, especially now. I mean, that's like you were, with financial expenses of it. We've had more women ask for financial aid for training this year than we have in the last 3 years combined, because people simply just don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, consistently, crime, particularly crimes against women, sexual assaults, abuse, these types of things are on the rise. So we have to do whatever it is that we can to make sure that we're helping these women um, be better equipped to protect themselves. We also provide training to. There's a couple of very selective about who I use with this for. Well, with firearm instructors too. I'm very particular about who we refer to. Even more particular about who we bring in as our own certified instructors, because of the psychological side of what we work with abuse
Right.
victims and stuff. It is contrary to what anybody. It is absolutely different, and if it you have to handle it differently. And sometimes they were not abused. They just don't even remember having a bad experience. Like, we've uncovered traumas that they didn't even realize that they had associated with guns. So 30 years in the beauty industry has helped with that, where I used to sit with them doing their nails and getting their heads. So I've learned how to pull that information out. But sorry, I lost my train of thought with that. So we also provide financial aid for women that just for whatever, sometimes felons, sometimes the women themselves are felons and can't own a gun. I see that quite a bit in Atlanta and Chicago, or whatever other reasons that they don't want to own a gun. So we work with real life hand-to-hand combative studios. So there's one thing to send somebody to a jiu-jitsu class. It's another thing to teach somebody how to get out of a street situation, which they're completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
There's one particular guy in Atlanta that we love to work with, and he actually teaches kids too. He teaches kids how to wreck cars. He says, if he throws you in the trunk, this is how you get out of the trunk and you wreck the car. The chances of you dying are high regardless. So it's better to take like this kind of mentality. And it's true. So, but he teaches the kids how to do it. And he teaches like family, like for families to get real life scenario situations. And he even takes the kids to, like, once they're at a certain level, it takes them to places that he's prearranged and has bad guys there ready to grab them and stuff, and how the kids get away from it and things. So I love that. I love what he does with that. I think it's wonderful. So we have donated $500 to him as well for 6 weeks of training for 5 women. He lowered his price for us so that we could help 5 women that could not. 3 of them couldn't own guns, but they're trying to make better lives for themselves. And so we helped with that as well. So it doesn't just go to gun. I mean, obviously that's my first choice for women, because nothing is more effective as a self-defense tool than a firearm for a woman. But they're not for everybody, and that's okay. And we need to respect that. So we have to be able to help women when we can.
Right. And it's interesting, again, sort of throwing back. I'm a bit of a hockey fanatic, and we had season tickets for several years to the local team here in Greenville, and we go up to the game. And one night I was a little bit later than usual on a Saturday night, and I had been at a class, and we got drug out at the range having a little fun. Someone had brought a couple of new guns, so after everyone had qualified for their CWP, I was actually trying out some of their stuff, and found a couple I had to buy. So, but we get up to the hockey game, and the woman at the bar is like, "You're late tonight," and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry." And she goes, "Everything okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I had class." She said, "Oh, what kind of class?" I said, "Oh, CWP." "Oh, how'd you do?" I said, "Oh, I did fine.
I teach it."
Yeah, I was teaching it." She said, "Oh, okay. I need to get mine, but I don't know." And we talked a little bit about it, and she was, someone I know regularly. And I told her, I said, "I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to say this and take it for what it's worth and yell at me later. You need it more than I do."
Yeah, it's true.
And this is pre-COVID. And she said, "Oh, really? What makes you say that?" And I said, "Okay, let me try this. You and I both leave here tonight. We go on our merry way. We both end up going to the same big box Acme Inc. store, and we're picking up our groceries. You walk out of the store going one direction. I walk out of the store going the other. I'm 6'2", 275.
Right.
Which one of us do you think, Cracky McCrackhead is going to engage with in the parking lot at Walmart at 11 o'clock tonight. Really. Criminals like the path of least resistance. Now, the female may be the jiu-jitsu martial artist. She may be able to kick me about 18 ways from Sunday. But at the initial impression from that wigged out mind, I don't know if I want to go after that. They're going to go after what is perceived, whether realistic or not, the smaller, weaker target.
Yeah, and I saw a video. I was looking for it. I can't find it, but not that it matters. It was a guy, and I agreed with everything he said, with the exception of that women and men are targeted equally, and that's not true. And I'm pretty sure if I go through my archives on the crime prevention research page, I could probably find proof of that. That is, in fact, not true at all. And men don't have to worry about sexual assault. So I was a little irked that the guy said that. But of course, it was one of those, it's absolutely one of those pages on social media. Had I responded and said that's not true, the dudes would have come after me and attacked me, because here's an uncomfortable truth. Men on the left want to be us a lot of times, or they're weak. Men on the right, especially with this Andrew Tate manosphere crap and all this make men again bullshit, there has been a huge surge of misogynist and chauvinistic behavior and attitudes out there. Don't believe me? Look it up. Look under the manosphere. And it was all kind of perpetuated. That Hannah Pearl Davis idiot, she's one of them too, but he's the one that always started that. There's some really shitty victim blaming going on, and it's a lot of this. Well, she gets what she deserves because she wanted to be equal. Well, it's bad. So women are, and there's a huge movement also to repeal the 19th Amendment. That's happening. And I had one woman, in fact, this one got me because she's a 2A absolutionist like me, hardcore, right? It's why she started following me on Instagram. And she said, well, I'm willing to give up my 19th Amendment for a little while, since all the liberal feminazis are the ones that have taken control of it. And I said, what do you think your best weapon is for protecting your Second Amendment? It's literally your right to vote, you fucking turnip. Like, I'm like, but these women are blowing my mind. Like, well, you'd be surprised how many women don't vote, how many conservative women don't vote or are registered to vote. That it's disturbingly high.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't subscribe to or watch much of Pearl, but I'd watch sometimes. I'd be like, lady, who are you talking to?
She's horrid. She's also a hypocrite, by the way.
No, I'll tell you.
She's almost 30 years old and unmarried, and she's hideous.
Well, Thanksgiving night, she ruined herself for me totally. She attacked Dolly Parton.
Oh, why'd she attack Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton did the halftime show at the Cowboys game.
But how do you attack Dolly?
Put out a picture of Dolly in the outfit she was in, saying that she was 77 years old, married. She said that she was a wife and mother, which Dolly is not a mother. She doesn't have any kids.
Nope.
And that her strutting around in that outfit was disgraceful. And she got ratioed hard.
Well, I bet she even got ratioed by some of the people that support her, because Dolly is the one entity that brings everybody together. Like, literally everybody loves Dolly. So
there were people on there basically stating that, you've insulted Dolly Parton. One day you'll be 1/10 the lady that she is.
Yeah.
And you're just jealous that she could pull this outfit off at 77 and you'll never pull this outfit. Oh, they ripped Pearl. Oh, it got ugly.
The sad part is that she just gets paid from all that interaction.
Right.
And that's why she does it, because she didn't give a shit. But she actually picked up a homeless guy and took him home for a while, and even he dumped her.
And some of what she's saying, I get a little bit, but she's gone so off the reservation now that it's like, come on, lady.
She's an idiot.
Yeah.
So, and she's a horrible representation of women. And so, as a real feminist, I sit right in the middle and I watch us getting attacked from both sides. And one of the biggest things that is this fight is our ability to defend ourselves right in the middle. And so I speak from both sides in this argument. because I see the way women are treated in this very gun industry is a very male dominated industry. And there are women that enable abusive behavior in the industry constantly. I've got screenshots. Look, I keep screenshots from 1776 in case a motherfucker want to try something with me. Like, these people, I've been canceled. I've been like, people message John Lott trying to get me fired when he hired me because they hated me so much.
And you see, you hit the radar about with that. I think it was the town hall article right about in there.
Yeah.
And, it's like, okay. And then I looked a little further and We the Female and that stuff. It's like, I honestly think one problem that we have across the 2A groups, and we're getting better about it, is from time to time we feel the need to hold a circular firing squad.
Well, and women are often in the center of that circle, actually. And there have been times that I've come out very vocal against abusive or chauvinistic or misogynistic men that have blamed women for being sexually assaulted. One of them was a major, he's a golden boy in the gun industry, and I called him out. And I didn't back down when everybody told me to back down, because he's a world champion shooter and blah, 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 and all this bullshit. But I started getting text messages from women who are also big influencers. I'm not an influencer. I run an advocacy organization. I don't consider myself a gun tuber or influencer or anything like that. But I got text messages from these female influencers who also spoke out against him. There were screenshots of people demanding that they take down calling him out because he's such a golden boy in the industry. This is the problem. So a woman said it best, a very, very conservative young lady, actually, in the gun industry. She said, there are women that benefit from the patriarchal mentality in the gun industry. And I was like, whoa, there's some truth to that. But see, the minute we say that, those are all trigger words that liberals use. And so conservatives shut down and they don't want to hear it, even though it really does exist.
But that's, again, where we get in these unfortunate circular firing squads, because there are things that you and I may disagree on one way or the other. But at the end of the day, if we can say, okay, we disagree on 20% of the items and agree on 80% of the items, hey, you're on the same team.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if the gun industry doesn't start changing, and I'm not talking about, the gun store, right? Well, we make more, guns are more accessible. There's more people training women, and, it's not just about pink guns. We're not recommending pink guns anymore. That's cool. But that's not the problem. The problem is in education and how they're treated, in social media being a big part of that. If you, like, anytime I post something about that, you'll see my comments blow up. Instagram is where I went viral first. So that's where you can see a lot of my followers and stuff. But the way women will start telling their story. That's why I told my story. I don't tell it often, but the more I talk about it, speak out against that kind of shit or shit in the industry, oh my God, women just start, right? Because they've been validated now. So the industry is really short-sighted with that stupid behavior, because how you're flat out going to protect the Second Amendment is getting women on board.
Right.
Who runs the gun control advocacy groups? Who are the gun grabbers?
Mm-hmm.
Moms, demand action, every town. They're women.
Right.
They're all women. You want to see change and you want to protect the Second Amendment, there needs to be more onboarding of women. And I don't mean just changing. In other words, we don't need another pink gun designed for women. We need the industry to change how they're approaching women. And that is in education and training and, retail sales. And I don't mean offering them a different type of gun. I mean how you're approaching the woman in the store. And it's huge. I come from a marketing background. I used to speak at women's conferences on marketing. This is getting into my lane with this kind of stuff, with marketing and approach, particularly to women. But it is, and they don't want to hear it. And one of the other frustrating things, and I talk to retailers and manufacturers about this all the time, and they get it, even though they won't do anything about it. But 99% of the gun industry / community forgets that there are only 1% of gun owners in America. Like, the other 99% of people that already own a gun aren't really in this circle that we're
Right.
in. And the circle doesn't do itself any favors to want to welcome these, particularly these women in. And
Right.
why is it that 80% of women, that's an informal survey that was done by me and my instructor friends in Chicago. So by no means is it scientific, but I would say that it's a pretty safe bet. Have gone to take a CCW class or have taken a fundamentals class, but they're not carrying.
Right.
Why? Because they're still not comfortable with their gun. That
Right.
means that somewhere something has failed in training.
Right. Well, I think some of it because they don't come with the background to the class. One thing I've noticed, again, in my CWP classes, most of the males coming in have grown up with it. A lot of the females have not.
It's also the approach. Yeah, background might be one of the things, but also how you're approaching it, right? You can start talking technical shit to women or to dudes all day long, right? They're into it. Women don't give a fuck. Women want to know how to take care of, protect themselves and their grandkids or their children. You have to push that emotional button. When I confronted Kamala Harris a few years back, that was an aha moment for me when her little minions, I ended up in a space with her minions and watched how they reacted. And this whole facts over feelings thing, it's useless. Like we live in a society where there's a whole culture of people that everything is emotional driven, and women are emotionally driven creatures.
Right.
So the minute that you help a woman understand how a gun control law affects her life personally, well, men too, this applies to men too, but especially women, but more importantly with women, how it affects her ability to protect herself and her babies, game on. So the approach has to change. I from being in Washington State when I lived up there for 20 years, I have a lot of liberal ladies that take my classes because they knew me before, they trust me. By the end of class, I flipped them totally because I helped them understand. I'm like, this isn't about this redneck shall not be infringed bullshit, right? I mean, even you have United States congressmen telling you that the Constitution doesn't matter. Like that has literally been said in hearings.
Yeah.
But what does matter is helping them understand how it affects their life personally. See, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is something that we as Americans are blessed to have guaranteed to us in our Constitution. Those are fundamental human rights. But my idea of liberty, not so much liberty, but pursuit of happiness, and your pursuit are different. So the double-edged sword of that moniker is that it creates a self-focused society. Because I'm going to pursue my happiness and pursue yours, which is great in theory. But it also means that people aren't going to stand up against something unless they understand how it affects their lives personally. Women even more so in a space like this, because it's already intimidating to them. So the minute that you help somebody understand how their lives are going to be affected personally, especially a woman, now you see the attitudes change. And now you see the behaviors change to the point where I had one liberal woman a week after class. She messaged me and she said, I know that you're working. I was doing some campaign advising for a couple of ladies that were running for office. And of course, they didn't listen. And guess what? They were, it's losing whatever. They were probably going to lose it, but that they were annihilated because they did opposite of everything they were told to do by me and their other advisors. But anyway, this lady went onto their websites and said, if she wants my vote as a liberal woman, this is what I would like to see. This is what should be changed on her page. I'm like, how much more valuable advice is that, right? Did she do it? Nope. I'm like, you just lost a vote. Right. Well, she may have, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she ended up voting for her or not anyway, but right. This woman literally gave her free advice from the other side. And but that's what I do. That's my passion is helping those women understand. And the minute that you, especially with liberal women, if you help them understand this from a more feminist approach, shit starts to change real fast. And that's something that I am blessed and I'm good at that. That is something that was given to me. And I'm sure it's from working in the beauty industry for 30 years and just knowing how to read women. But
and that may
that's the crux of working with women and how it's so much different than working with men.
It may well be. I know, again, a lot of the females that I've been doing, and I've been dealing with a lot of one-on-one first-time classes. I'm interested in maybe someday getting my CWP, but they've never handled a firearm. Or I've got one that she went out with down to the range with me. She had not handled a gun in 10 plus years. And it's like, okay, we're going to start with just the basics, the simple, and we'll work from there at your speed, no rush. Let's get, the 4 rules of safety. Let's get comfortable with you're going to pull this and it's going to make a loud noise. We'll get past all that. Then we'll talk about actually hitting the target reliably.
Yeah.
We've got to build to this. This is a building block thing. And, a lot
I don't give a shit about trigger reset. I don't give a shit about where your feet are. I want you to pull the trigger and not drop the gun or cry.
Yeah.
And keep yourself and everybody around you safe.
Right.
So.
Yeah, if you can manage not to, shoot the instructor or flag everyone on the range that day, we're having a good day.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So it is a big deal, and it's something that they're just.
So you mean you don't break out the stopwatch and make them do splits times?
No, God, no, I don't make them do any of that kind of stuff. We do later. I don't do split time. I don't do any of that kind of shit. I teach them up until shooting on the move, because a lot of that shit is insignificant in a real life situation.
Right.
Where they're going to panic and they're going to freak out. I would rather them go do scenario training with flashlights and some knife work than like trying to do competitive shooting shit.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
Oh, I know you were. I know you were joking, but yeah, it's silly. And that's the other thing. I personally, my organization teaches up to shooting on the move with basic shooting, drawing, clearing malfunctions, magazine changes, and I don't go past that. If somebody's serious and they want to go past that, there are some amazing instructors that I refer them to.
So a lot of times I don't even get to the shooting on the move. I'll do the fundamentals, the legals, and then the clearing malfunctions. And I'm the great one to say, I don't care what the target is, how big it is. Let's put a paper plate out there.
Yeah.
Can you put 6 out of 8 or 8 out of 10 in that paper plate at 10 yards? We're not here to make American Sniper. We're here 10 yards engagement. That's tops.
Yeah. Contrary to what the internet wants to tell you.
Well, even at the state CWP, now, you're constitutional county, Georgia, we still do the testing up here, but they recommend we don't go further than 15 yards for the state qualifications.
Any altercation where you're legitimately going to need to use a gun for lethal force is probably going to be within 7 yards. 7 yards or closer.
Right.
So anything past that, and you could end up in trouble in court.
Right. And the question, I was going to say, even when we go to the outdoor range a lot of times, because, it's easier to teach at the outdoor range because it's less concussion, less bang for the bang.
I prefer that too.
And I tell them a lot of times, I was like, look, even at the outdoor range, I know what they've got set up out there. You'd have a hard time really justifying that you felt like an imminent threat if they're standing over there.
Yeah.
But we'll, set up on the 25 berm and say, okay, but can you handle it reliably? Can you chamber it without shaking? That's a good one.
Yeah. Learn to lock the slide back. That's a big one. We spend sometimes 40 minutes helping women learn how to lock the slide back. It blows my mind how many women have gone and taken other firearms classes, and then they don't know how to lock a slide back. I'm like, this is a fundamental feature of your gun that you need to know how to operate. And so we don't move forward until they can. But here's the thing about that. More importantly than knowing how to do it is the psychological win that they get when they do. So, and this is something that's highly underestimated by instructors, and with all due respect, especially by men. So, especially with my older ladies or my more fragile ladies that have been abused or whatever, you're right. I remember this because I've been there. I couldn't make a grilled cheese sandwich without being terrified that I was going to get yelled at for it being wrong. And then if I didn't make it, I got yelled at. Like I get it, right? I get the emotional break. And there's a lot, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. And, just to look at those women and say, you know what, you can do it. And we're not going to stop. We won't go on until you can. And then once they get it, they're like, It's to watch the self-esteem boost that comes from that is huge. And then it makes everything else easier for them. It's helping them get over that psychological block that they feel like they can't do something. And oftentimes it's because they're older and they've been told they can't do it, or a man did it for them, right? That was a little bit more of an older generation attitude. Because I'd have women come out shoot and a lot, and they're like, but then they didn't know how to load a gun. They didn't know how to load a mag. I'm like, oh, did your husband just load it and give it to you? Yeah. I'm like, well, you need to know all this other stuff.
Okay,
So watching them grow from that space is huge.
I'll do that for them the first couple trips to the range. It's like I'll load the mag for them, and then little by little, yeah. Oh yeah, the first couple, yeah, I'll do that because we're trying to get to the point of, okay, it went bang and I'm not having a bad day. Yep. Hey, look, now it's going to go bang again. Now it's going to go bang again. Now,
it's fun to watch them all stand around the table doing it together and giggling and watch it and they get excited. That's the first self-esteem leap, is when they're like, I can do it. I mean, if you do it your way, that's cool. But to watch them do that, they're like, I did it. I got it in there. I'm like, sure did. Now, guess what else you're capable to do? Capable of.
Mm-hmm.
So again, most fundamental classes are here.
Right.
Because of the type of students I have to, my basics are here.
Right.
So because I work so much with women that have had emotional, traumas or whatever, some of my students have had guns held to their heads.
Right.
And we have to get them over that trauma. So, or they're older and that was just, my husband took care of it. I didn't have to. One of my students is 80 years old, never touched a gun in her life, very pro 2A. That was always her husband's deal. And, her husband ended up in, with Parkinson's and is in a long-term care facility. And she now lives alone. And the crime rate is coming up where she lives and she's scared. But she's coming back to take another class again when I get back to Washington, because she sees, that she's now her own protector because her husband's not there. And that we see that a lot in my classes, actually.
Right. We actually had one, she was an aunt or great aunt of someone who I knew, and her husband had passed away, and they had a gun for self-defense up in the case in the closet. And it's like, okay. And so I said, tell her if she wants to, just bring it over to the office, case and all, and we'll start. Yeah. And she handed me the box. She goes, here, I don't even know if it's loaded or not. I'm like, it's okay, we'll check. And it turned out it was very nice. It was a 365, very nice firearm. She didn't know anything. We worked all the way through, and she actually got her CWP through me.
Good for her.
But it was like,
is she carrying every day?
I don't know every day. I know that very much we went through the CWP stuff and then I went through sitting down with some of the basics as far as the home defense plan and everything else. Determined that as far as, that doorway is my bottleneck. It's a bottleneck for me going out. It's a bottleneck for them coming in. I know what I'm going to do. I know where I'm going to be. I know what I'm going to call. Because I teach a lot of people, you don't make really great decisions off the top of your head at 3 o'clock in the morning, half awake.
You're also not going to put on a kit and a night vision goggles and go running downstairs like a goddamn Army Ranger either, these delusional people. And they spend more money on gear and kits than they do training. I mean, I've got all that stuff, and I've got woods. I own 30 acres. My husband and I go out in the back and we do shit. But let me tell you, that ain't realistic in the middle of the night when you're like, and then you get downstairs and what? You're going to shoot your cat because you found out the cat had gotten up on the counter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just dumb. Like, I hate that. I hate that whole, I'm going to gear up. No, you're not, bro. No, you're not. If somebody's breaking into your house, you're not going to take the time to put on a full fucking kit. Like, just like, let it go, bro.
But no, see, my whole thing is I teach a lot of times understanding that, okay, I as much as you want to go engage with them and as much as they're in your house and they're messing with your stuff, is there any of your stuff that's worth catching around for?
That's right. We call it, and feel free to use this if you'd like. We tell people, ladies, you're too pretty for prison. You are too pretty for prison. Is your TV worth you going to prison? Nope. Because even if you're in the right, Kyle Rittenhouse, even if you're in the right, Kyle Rittenhouse, you can still end up in court, and it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars because some shitbag district attorney, McCluskey's, right, out of Missouri, you can still end up in court because of some shitbag DA. DAs could care less. Prosecutors could care less about justice, as I mentioned earlier. It's all about their win and loss records. So
I do less on that side. I do more on the whole tactical side. My question is, what else is outside the bedroom that's worth catching around for, number one? Because I got news for you. They're wide awake. How many of them are there? How well armed are they?
right.
Oh, that's great. You've got your nightstand gun. What are they
Best
carrying?
situation is if they have a 2-story house.
Right.
Because let them steal your shit downstairs. The minute they come upstairs, now you know it's not about your shit.
Well, that and there's a wonderful bottleneck called a stairway.
Right, exactly. That too,
It's
right?
a two-way fatal funnel. It's a fatal funnel if I go into it. It's a fatal funnel if they go into it.
Right.
Sit at the top of the stairs, own the funnel.
That's right.
Or in the case of a 1-story house, sit on the floor next to the bed, own that bedroom door.
Right.
If they come inside that bedroom door, they're now going to be neutralized.
Right. Anything else, it means they're there for property, and it ain't worth all the hell that you're going to go through.
Right.
For it. But if it's your life or your baby's lives or whatever, that's a different story.
Right.
So yeah.
But no, we sat down with her and they had me go out to her house, and I said, okay, if you hear this, you've got the phone, you know your phone works, where your safe point is, you know where the gun is, you're going to do all this. And she's like, well, what if there's someone here? I was like, I don't care. And it's like, there ain't nothing out there that's worth you getting hurt over.
That's right. That's right. Nothing insurance won't replace.
Because, I think, was it you put up the 10-shot today? The 10-shot Magnum today?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 12.
Okay.
Before the guy went down. Yeah.
Okay. The one I use in class, which is a little bit less politically correct. Look at the shooting in Kenosha that actually lit everything off with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, right.
Rashad Brooks.
Yeah.
He took 7 rounds, law enforcement quality ammo at close range.
Yeah.
And if one hadn't caught him in the spine, he was still fighting, and he is still alive to this day.
Right. Yep.
So the one-shot stop is a myth. Center of visible body mass until aggressive action is stopped. If you run out, mag dump it, get the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's why I hate mag limits. Fixed mags and stuff. I hate it. It is so dangerous because these people don't care, man.
Right. But I always in my CWP class, how many people, and they say, how many times can you shoot? Until the aggression is stopped.
That's right. Till the threat is neutralized, or you do not feel like your life is in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death. Now, I know, and I look at my students, I'm like, I know what Kerry the gun owner is telling you. I know what that means for me, but I can't tell you what it means for you. Kerry the instructor is telling you, you stop until that threat is neutralized. I've had to draw my gun on a homeless guy, and I had nightmares. You don't want to shoot somebody if you don't have to, because even just drawing my gun got in my head. And I don't care how justified you are, it's going to affect you. And you don't want to have to do that. But I just tell my students, I'm like, look, you better learn your laws well for your state, get right with Jesus and your family, figure out whatever that means to you, what neutralizing that threat means. But I know what it means to me because I know what I'm capable of. Because in that, everybody thinks they're ready to shoot someone until they're in a situation where they may have to shoot someone, or they do.
Right.
And it was after the adrenaline, he took off when he saw the gun in Seattle, of course. And once the adrenaline started dropping, I was driving, and I realized I was going to kill that man. I was going to take that man's life. If it meant he or I. And it's amazing. Like, if you carry a gun every day, you know how much more shit you put up with from people. After that, I got even more peaceful. Because I just look at people when they want to start some shit, and I'm just like, I'm going to walk away because I'm saving your life right now, not mine. Because I know that I'm capable of killing you. and I'm probably better trained than you are. So it's just not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me to go through the headache and all of that kind of stuff, but it took that cathartic moment for me. Like I always thought, yeah, I would handle it, right? Because I'm a survivor too. I have that fight in me after being an abuse survivor. But when I was actually confronted with it, I had a whole different thing. And I mean, not that I realized, not that I didn't think I couldn't, looking it back. I'm like, oh, I thought I could, but I couldn't. No, it wasn't like that. But it was like, holy shit, I was going to kill that man. Like it's a trip when you can process that. And then I had nightmares about it. Yeah. It was wild.
I remember the first time many, many years ago, to date this, I was driving probably an 88 or 89 Crown Vic, and we were still carrying wheel guns at the time. So that gives you an idea. But, we were, yeah. So it's a 686 full bore Magnum, Federal Hydroshocks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not very practical for a lady to wear on her person for self-defense, but it's a nice gun to shoot.
It sort of came with that whole pair of brown polyester pants and a funny tan.
Oh, for sure. And the arm holster, right? The underarm holster.
No, it was on my full rig. But, went out one day with, a subject, sitting outside the bank. Could you check on them? I went out there to check on them. Oh, dark 100. This guy decides to break the bottle. I pulled up. He breaks the bottle he's drinking out of on the front bumper of my cruiser as he's coming at me, and I'm in the V of the door. And so I had the door and the car between, and as he's, walking toward me with a jagged bottle, I'm up, and he's looking down the barrel of the Smith at that range, and I'm like, dude, I will shoot you. I will shoot you.
Yeah, I bet his attitude changed real fast after that.
He stood there and said, do me, kill me. I don't care.
He was in
and
that
I'm
phase.
like, dude, you don't want this. You don't want this.
That's a dangerous dude right there, though, that's in that mindset.
But we stood Mexican standoff for, I know it felt like 3 days, but it was probably about 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And he screamed, fuck you, broke the rest of the bottle on the hood of the car and walked off in the woods. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And my second in car was probably 5 minutes away, and I was still panting when he got there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the closest I've come in that situation where it wasn't room clearing or very high speed, low drag. It was like 0 to 60, and it was right here.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you know what I'm gonna do.
Right. And it does take, like, in your mind, it plays, it takes forever. Like you said, 15, 20 seconds, and it feels like it was however long. Yeah, it's true.
But let's look here at see if we've managed to move your numbers up at all. It's okay, still sitting at about $23.60.
We did get one more donation for $25. I don't know if it was from one of your followers or if it was from somebody seeing it. Levi. I don't think you know Levi. Levi is a friend of mine. So
okay.
Yeah. So yep. So it's kind of holding there. So that's okay. The drawing will be on December 4th. Just because I wanted to make sure that we did it early enough to be able to transfer for Christmas.
Right.
For people. And I know you're going to send the range bag and bleed stop kit out yourself. So thank you for doing that, by the way. I appreciate it. And,
we actually went by the office today, picked up the bleed stop kit. We do a variety of medical training. As a matter of fact, while we have a second here, I'm going to go ahead and pimp something out just for a second, if you don't mind. We have a wonderful sponsor for tonight's show. Nice enough to help us with all this. Valor Medical Services, which is my actual full-time job that sort of tries to pay the bills a little bit. But we're rapidly approaching the EMS recertification deadline of March 31st nationally. And if anyone out there is an EMT or an advanced EMT or a paramedic, much like me, and needs any EMS continuing education, we are CAPC accredited, and we have a full online training program the online academy. The link to the academy is down there on the bottom. And if you use coupon code Gun Club, you get a 15% on anything. So, again, research season is coming up. We know what it is. EMTs, you need about 40 hours. Paramedics, you need 60 hours of Con Ed. Well, with 331 coming up, any topic groups, mandatory topic groups, whatever. And Valor does do direct entry into CAPC and National Registry, so you don't even have to worry about doing the paperwork. We enter it in our system here, and it pops up on your National Registry education profile within about 2 days for you to import into your research. So again, please go ahead and support Valor. They support the program. They help make a lot of this possible. And they also donated the Bleed Stop kit on here to do this. So for what it's worth, there's the link on the bottom. If you have any questions or you need a free consultation on your recertification needs, again, hit us up at valormed.net. We're on there and definitely do all research stuff.
You know, and I wish that more people would understand, like, I would rather somebody, instead of seeing somebody go take some, rifle pistol transition class, go take a stop the bleed or a bleed stop class. Like the chances of you needing that without a gun, not in a gun situation, firearm active shooter situation, is much higher. Car accidents, whatever. I'm a huge proponent of medical training. But I think that it should just become a natural extension of firearms fundamental training, in my opinion. So,
and we do the Stop the Bleed. Let's see, it wasn't last year. It was, I want to say, 2022 at the start of the school year. We offered the tactical emergency casualty care basic level for bystanders to all the school districts and private schools in the county.
That's awesome.
We basically told them, here's all the dates. We scheduled a bunch of dates, days, evenings, whatever, at our facility, and said, any district employee, I don't care, teacher, lunch lady, or bus driver, custodian, principal, I don't care, any district employee free from any of the districts,
That's
any
awesome.
of the schools.
That is so important. Good for you, man.
Again, that's a lot of what we learned. They want to talk about what they learned at Sandy Hook. I'll talk about what I learned. And,
right. Yeah.
The thing is, and I speak as EMS, yes, I do gun stuff, but I might have 25 years as a paramedic or something. I don't know.
You're gonna use those medical skills before you use those gun skills, most likely.
Well, that, and even more so than that, is from a standpoint of complementary skills. Yeah. I know I had to pass CPR first aid twice when I was in high school. Once in 9th grade year, once in 11th grade year. You didn't do it both times. You didn't graduate.
Yeah. God, I wish they did that again.
Well, there's that. And I think, and I still think, one thing we need to work on eventually, one of my projects, is trying to get basic firearm education in schools.
Yeah, there's an organization called what is it called? I'll give it to you. I can't remember it. Can't remember the name of it, but there's a guy that actively tries to do that all over the country. So I can't think of the guy's name right now. I'll get it to you as soon as I can think of it.
But I mean, I think K through 6, and that's another thing I tell everyone in my CWP classes or my basic firearm classes, if they can't do the stop, don't touch, go away, tell an adult, that should be more than stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree, 100%.
And I've had, my friends bring their kids by, and it's like, we'll sit there and we'll talk about it. And it's like, okay, stop. Don't touch. Run away.
Yeah.
Find an adult.
Yeah.
And we'll be dancing and sing-song with that, sitting Indian style on the floor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, they've internalized it. I'll take it.
Right.
Now go tell your friends, all of them.
Yep. Well, I get it. I agree with you totally.
But, well, I appreciate you coming out to play this evening.
Thank you for having me. I apologize for not being at the top of my game here. My med is that's my ear is starting to plug back up again, so it's time for more of a. I take yarrow and some other things. I'm an herbalist, so I'm the dirt medicine doctor. So if shit goes down, I know what to use in nature.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see here. Was it
Sometimes you
one?
just need some fucking Sudafed, though. You know what I mean?
Well, nowadays you go on more of a list for that than you do for filling out a
Isn't
4473.
that the truth? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now let's see here. It's 25 per entry, right?
$25 gets you one entry. $50 gets you 3 entries. And you can, like some people, like I had one guy donate 150, right? So he'll get 9 entries, but he said if I win it, give it to a student. I've had several people say that, which was incredibly generous and kind of them to give it to a woman in need, which was amazing. But yeah, so you can stack it. I mean, for people that want to do that. But again, 100% of all of the funds that come into We the Female, whether through teaching, whether it's from somebody who's a paid student or through donations or raffle prizes or what have you, 100% of it goes back into our fund to help arm women that can't afford training.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. And I will say this, and we've talked about it. You have a training facility. You saw a little picture of it there. Our classroom facility. I don't know if you're familiar with South Carolina at all.
I'm not far from South Carolina. I'm in Southeast Georgia. So
No, I don't know if you're familiar, like where Lawrence, South Carolina is.
I can look it up.
Okay. Very simply, the best way I can describe it is if you're coming up 26 out of like Columbia,
Mm-hmm.
there's Richland and Lexington County, then there's Newberry County.
Yeah.
After Newberry, before
Okay.
That's where the 26 through 85 split is. That's in Lawrence County.
Cool. I mean, I've had people request classes in South Carolina, so we'll have to set something up.
And anytime, feel free to, use the training center, set something up with that. I am more than happy to do it. And, unless I've got an EMS class that day, it's at your disposal.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you, because that's the biggest thing is finding facilities willing to work with us and that don't want to absolutely be extortive on their rates. And I'm like, this is a nonprofit, man. We're helping women that can't afford it. So
right.
So that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Let's see here. I'm trying to do paperwork on this. I'm sort of multitasking here at the moment, but let's see. But, as far as I know, we all talked about it here, and so we're going to make a little contribution here for the raffle.
Oh, Sully, thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
Hey, I figured the good thing is, guess what? If I actually win it, then I save the postage on mailing out the goodie box.
That's true. You do. And then you have an extra firearm you can use in your classes.
Right. And well, like I said, I was telling somebody, I said, I pretty much know somebody who would like it. My everyday carry is frequently a Shield. I've got an old Shield 1.0 that I've had all along that, I'd love to think the world of. But on the other side of that coin, let's see. Yes. I don't know. Apparently, MX is being particularly picky. Security code. Yes, I know what the security code is, amazingly enough. But, to me, it's one of those things of getting training out there. And I will also say this, for what it's worth, if you end up with somebody in my neck of the woods who needs a class, because I know at one point I said something about, well, how hard is to get your permit in Georgia? And you're like, we're constitutional. I was like, didn't know that, but okay.
Permitless, not technically constitutional, because there's certain areas we still can't carry, but that just passed last year. So I'm actively working in Louisiana, although Louisiana is going to be easy because the new governor already supports it. But then we're going to be working in South Carolina, North Carolina, although if Robinson wins in North Carolina, it's going to be easy to get it passed there. But two things I'm actively working on is trying to get constitutional carry passed in those states. And then my move is to try to get them to ban red flag laws.
Well, I will say this. We've been close to constitutional a couple times,
Yep.
and it hasn't hit yet.
Yep.
But if and when it does, great, wonderful, I'm all for it. But even until it does, one thing I would love to see them do here, by law, the state has 90 days to process your packet.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the packets go in electronically. Okay. We now send them, you can do a paper packet, but we send them in electronically. You go to Identigo, you get your fingerprints digitized. You've entered everything, it's already in. It's in Columbia on SLED's desk in 13.72 seconds.
Oh, I know. They need to expedite it, especially for abuse victims.
Okay. I would say if they have a cover letter from either victims advocacy, local sheriff, whatever, I'm not saying change the requirement at all.
Kentucky already has that.
To me, that is something, again, there's some things that require a literal act of Congress because we're changing a law.
Right.
To get constitutional. We're changing a law. We've got to get everybody. But this, to me, is one of those things that would be, okay, we need McMasters to call over to someone at SLED and say, okay, if it fits this criteria, front of the line. It shouldn't take 89 days.
Yeah, I've got the legislation, the piece of legislation from Kentucky, because Kentucky actually passed that where they expedited it for abuse. Abuse victims. So I do have that piece of legislation I'm sitting on. But first, there's some other things that we've got to work on as well. So,
see, to me, I understand what you're saying legislatively, but we really, to change it.
Nobody's going to change that rule with that legislation because everybody is going to, this is the shit that I deal with because nobody wants responsibility for it. They want to keep kicking the can down the road till somebody takes responsibility for it. So sheriff's departments and shit, they're not going to take well, let me rephrase that. You're going to get more likely to get movement out of a sheriff than you are a police chief.
Right.
On something like that. But even at that, it's, I get you, I hear you, but most people don't want to take the responsibility on for something like that.
See, my thought is SLED is an executive agency.
I get
How quickly they process something.
I know.
Yeah.
That's because they don't want the responsibility in case it goes wrong. Then it's going to look bad on them. And so they don't want it. So they'd rather have the legislature deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and I know a few people in the legislation. In fact, I wish I had known you back when we had our 2A rally up here a few months back. You would have been surprised. You really would have. I was pleasantly surprised. The South Carolina legislators who were in the Freedom Caucus, who were pro 2A, held a get-together, rally, band, everything else. And they had all the, insurance and different people out there, gun shops represented and everything, in a parking lot. And they brought people up on stage and said, okay, this person has supported this. Awesome. This person supported this. Oh, by the way, here are the people who want to take your gun rights away. Get them out of our way. And we don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. Are they pro 2A? And they've got local businesses sponsoring this.
This is awesome. I love it. More of this.
Well, people are realizing.
Yeah.
Well, we made a little donation in there for you.
Thank you, Sully. I appreciate you.
No, not a problem. I will let you get going. I appreciate you soldiering through tonight.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm starting to.
I know when you mentioned last night you had a sinus infection, I was like, I wanted to get you on here to get this information.
Yeah, I was like, no, I had to cancel because of my roof situation last week. So I'm like, I'm not doing that to begin. Took some meds and stuff earlier, and I was like, okay, timing wise, I'm good, but they're starting to.
Well, honestly, had it not been, time sensitive with this, I would have totally understood why you canceled. But the biggest thing was I wanted to get you on to talk about this because, it's doing okay now. I have a couple of friends in the podcast industry who are much, much, much bigger than we are here. And they're probably going to get notified about this tonight.
Oh, that would be amazing. Anything that can help us get these women, get funds to help train these women. It's awesome. I'll go on their podcast too if they want I'm happy to do that as well. So,
Okay.
yeah, if they need a guest ever, I'm happy to do that, especially if they're willing to help support our mission. We are a 501c3 too, so it is a tax deductible donation.
Mm-hmm. But they do a lot of shout outs in different groups and things like that. And
Perfect.
one of them I'm thinking of right now is extremely libertarian, pro 2A, pro, you know,
Awesome.
he supports the use of, why are we having a problem with full autos? What shall not be infringed? We get rid of the NFA, the GCA.
So he's
shall
like me then. When you said he's a libertarian, I was like, oh, he's gonna be like I am about. He's an
He
absolute.
says, as far as he's concerned, this country needs one gun law and one gun law only,
That's
and
right.
that it shall not be infringed.
That's right.
And once you read and understand that, you realize the next one you write, no,
Period.
One again.
That's my guy right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of all things, he's an attorney.
Even better.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you again for your generosity and
Thank
your
you for coming in tonight to join us. Definitely appreciate it. And again, if there's anything that I can do at all, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to go ahead and knock the stream off here.